Greetings. Welcome to a presentation by the Adrian Dominican Sisters of A Sister Story. And today, I am Sister Peg O'Flynn, and today we are having a conversation with our Sister Maureen Comer. Maureen is presently residing in Waterford, Michigan. If you're unfamiliar with Michigan, she'll tell us exactly where that is. So welcome, Maureen, and thank you very much for your willingness to share part of who you are and how you began and where you began. And so just talk about yourself and let us know a little bit more. And if you want to begin where you began, with your parents and where you grew up, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So it's all yours.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Peg. And so to begin, I'm a third generation Detroiter on both sides of my family. Both my parents have deep roots in Detroit, and that was always an important part of our life. And also come from pure Irish strain on both sides. So I have been accused of a bit of the Blarney and storytelling and possibilities. But my family was just always, and still is, an important part of who I am and how I became who I am. I do say, though, it's kind of weird. It's a little strange for those of you who know about Detroit. I don't quite know how my parents came together because it's really kind of a mixed marriage. My father was a West Sider and my mother was an East Sider.
Right, that was
how
Detroit.
They ever met. I don't really recall hearing that story exactly. So that's always been kind of a fun thing in the family, that East Side, West Side came together in the Comer family. So I grew up with two brothers, very close knit kind of relationship. Not that we didn't have our interesting times. I was 6 years old before I found out that my nickname for Maureen was not moron. My brother would say that to me and I didn't know what it meant. But when I found out what it meant, that practice stopped immediately. But the tender thing I remember about my younger brother, when my mother was pregnant with him, she asked me, did I want a brother or a sister? I said immediately I wanted a brother. I had a brother. I liked him. That was a good thing. I wanted another one of those. So now she has the baby and brings him home. And both my brother and I had colds, so we had to stay in the hallway and when they put him on the bed. And I looked in. Now I was 3 years old. And I remember this. I looked into the bedroom and I thought, well, what's that? That's not a brother. I don't know what that is, but it's not a brother who was standing next to me. He was a brother. That little bitty thing that was on the bed. What could I do with him? Couldn't play with him. So anyway, that's how we sort of started. It gives you a little hint into my relationships with my two brothers. My older brother now has passed away.
Yeah,
I'm still very close to my younger brother and their respective families. So it's again, a close knit. And I didn't have much relationship with my grandfathers. I had none with my grandfathers because they both predeceased my being born. I remember both my grandmothers, but they both died when I was when I was 10. So I didn't really know a lot about grandparents, but aunts and uncles on both sides were very close. Cousins, we all played together, stayed overnight during the summers, and we're all still close. So that's, I think, been an important part of who I am. The one thing about my family that was very significant, when I was 13, my father was an accountant with Chrysler. He was at work. He did not feel well. He called his doctor to make an appointment. Anyway, he passed away at work.
And you were 13?
13. He had a sudden heart attack. Did not know he had heart disease. So that was a hard part of my life and our life as a family. But again, both sides of the family rallied around us, and in many ways for years really were very supportive of my younger brother was only 10 and I was 13. So that family again has been very important to me.
Yes, very much. I know that.
Yes. Yes, you've met.
I
You've
think
met.
it's Irish. Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, there
Yeah.
is the Irish part as well. There is.
And
the Irish
having
part.
brothers is always special, you know. They're
Oh,
just
I love
special.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
both
always
my
felt
brothers.
sorry for people that didn't have brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
you do. Yeah, and I was in some ways wished I had a sister at some points, but
Mhm.
brothers were great.
Yeah.
Still true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and they married wonderful women, so that worked out well for them as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
So that's a good part of my life. So, you had some questions that you sent about what schools I attended. I went to Guardian Angels in Detroit,
Okay.
and that was the Sisters of Charity. And then I lived walking distance from Dominican High.
What
That's how I
street?
got to know the Adrian Dominican Sisters.
What street did you live on?
I lived on White Hill in
Yeah.
Corville.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I was a direct shot up to the campus.
Yeah.
And so that's, of course, how I got to know the Adrian Dominican Sisters. And I have to say, both of those groups of sisters, the charities from Cincinnati and Adrian's, I think I know the reason that religious life was attractive to me is they were happy women.
Mhm.
They were happy.
Mhm.
Um, they reached out. They taught me things, and I love to learn. So that was an important part of it. But that it was really that they were happy.
And so many of our women that had other sisters that they taught that were taught them have always said that about our joy. So
Yeah.
I think we take that seriously, and may we continue as we move along in life.
Well, and I think it's a choice we make.
Yeah.
I think it's a choice we make, so that when I think about gifts that I have been given, I realized we make some choices. My mother was a polio survivor.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
so she lived with polio from the age of 2. And so it didn't stop her from doing much in her life. And that was a model that I had. She learned how to live without her husband at a very young age.
Right. And 3
Finish
kids.
raising
Yeah.
children.
Mm-hmm.
She learned, she made something that was difficult to be a positive. And by that, I mean, she had polio. It very much impacted her ability to walk because that was the version that she had. However, the kids in the neighborhood actually picked her to be first on their kickball team because she had a brace. And that brace could kick the ball further than kids that didn't have a brace.
Smart. Okay.
And so I remember her telling that story often. And I think it's really impacted my philosophy or my way to deal with life. So that, yes, you got something that's hard to do, but just do it.
Yeah.
You can do it. I remember when I was in 3rd grade, there was some wisdom in 3rd grade. What are you, 8 years old when you're in 3rd grade? We got given a project by Sister Steve and Mary. It was a very hard project. I thought at 8 years old, very hard project. And I was very worried. How could I possibly ever do a project that was so hard? I don't remember now what it was.
I was just going to say.
I remember it was hard.
Okay.
So then I thought, wait a minute. A whole bunch of other kids have had to do this project before. If all those other kids could do that project, you can do it too. So just do it.
Good. You gave yourself a talk. Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of the wisdom as I've reflected for this conversation, Peg, that I thought, that wisdom came to me when I was 8 years old. And I know you know, because we just talked a little bit about it, that I've had some health issues.
Yes.
That have been substantial in the last couple of years.
That you are with us now is a gift. That's all I can say after your illness.
It is. Yeah, that was not really what it was looking like a couple of years ago. That is true. It was pretty serious. I had ended up having 3 surgeries. I had gone through the big surgery, the 8-hour surgery. And now I was in the midst of doing the chemo. And the first 6 chemos were particularly intense. And I ended up having over 20 chemos, but the first 6 really were intense. after 2 of them, I said to myself, I don't know if I can do this.
See,
I've got 4 more that I knew were going to be very intense. I thought, I don't, how am I going to do this? I can't, I don't know. And then I said, I think my 8-year-old
I was just going to say, yeah.
came, and I wasn't conscious of that then, but as I've reflected on it, and I thought, Maureen, you can do this and you will do this. So just do it.
Good.
So
good.
I did.
Yeah.
Didn't expect I'd have to do all those extra chemos and 2 more surgeries, but I've kept that in mind. You can do this, just do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that has taught me that God does give us the grace if we just let God do it.
Mm-hmm.
We do have to you have to kind of let that happen. You have to. And the other thing about that was so meaningful to me was that my sisters, my family certainly also, but the Adrian Dominican Sisters were with me the whole way. This happened just before COVID. Well, actually, COVID existed. We just didn't know it yet. So I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I did not have one day, one night, one morning, whatever, where there was not an Adrian Dominican sister in the room with me at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I never was alone.
Mm-hmm.
I never asked them to do that. I didn't. And as a, you know, at the time, you know, I've been a hospital administrator for many years. I didn't even think about sisters coming to be with me. You know, the nurses, the techs, the doctors, they'll take care of me.
Yeah.
But I did not have one moment that I did not feel cared for by the congregation, by the sisters.
Wonderful.
It was. And how that got orchestrated, I still don't know exactly, because Katie came from Nevada and Mary Beth came from St. Louis and Patty came from Adrian and Carol Fleming came from Adrian. I mean, people came from all over.
Right.
And people just came from all over. So we do care for each other. So in addition to being joyful, we have our moments when we're kind of cranky, but basically we care for each other.
And you were in Adrian during the pandemic, because I know we couldn't see you. We couldn't get over there to see you. Yeah.
Well,
and maybe you didn't want visitors because you were still very bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was both. The COVID started. So it was getting it. It still wasn't as bad as we knew it was going to be.
Yeah.
But it was. Yeah. It had started. Yeah. But I also was. I just needed. I couldn't put energy into being with people visiting.
No.
And I know that was well intended, but
sure. Yeah. People knew.
It's wearying. So anyway.
So that was that was a great lesson. That's one question I think we always want to know, that you've had some challenging times, and look at how that has carried you through since 3rd grade. That seriously, that experience. Sometimes we look for something great. Well, that was whatever. Probably
it was a little project in 3rd grade.
Puzzle pages or something.
Yeah, it was something. I mean, I don't remember now what it was, but I just know it was, it was going to be so hard.
So then you went to Dominican, to high school.
I did.
Yeah, and you could just walk right there to Dominican. And how was your time at Dominican? It was good and special.
It was very good.
Yeah.
You know, that, and again, in retrospect, the quality of education that was provided at Dominican High, it really was college level in a lot of ways. And at that time, the entire faculty was Adrian Dominican Sisters. There were no lay teachers at all, except we had a lay woman in the office, and the physical ed person at that time was a woman, lay woman. But it was all Adrian Dominican Sisters. And I remember after I graduated from Dominican, I went to Wayne State Night School and worked at Hudson's credit office in downtown Detroit, because I couldn't afford to go full time. You know, we're being raised at that point by a single mom.
Yeah.
So I was going to night school and at Wayne State. And then I remember thinking, why did they teach the same thing in college that you already had in high school?
Oh my gosh.
I wonder why they do that.
Oh my word.
And then finally, looking around, I thought, these other kids don't know this stuff.
Great compliment to the teaching at Dominican. Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You know, in today's world, probably you get college credit for
Yeah.
what we ended up being taught at Dominican High.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they were good women that, you asked about the mentor. I would have to say Sister Marcel, Florence Fouché, was very instrumental in talking with me and encouraging me to become an Adrian Dominican sister. My mother did not like the idea.
No, I can see.
At all. Not at all. Not at all. So that was difficult for a bit there. And that's part of the reason I entered a couple years later, just to see if I was going to continue to feel called to this, and to see if my mother would be more at peace with that decision. I found out later that there was a little betting thing going on in the neighborhood that I'd be back by Christmas.
Oh, interesting.
But Mr. Colombo lost that bet. That neighbor down the street that I babysat those kids. So that was kind of a hard thing. But in the end, my mother grew to love the congregation. When I was in Henderson for those years at St. Rose, she had had a stroke, and she would come and spend the winters with me, and she loved it. Everyone was good to her, and we had a good time. But
she never saw you enough, if I recall correctly.
Oh, true.
Because that's how I got to know her, this Maureen Comer. Yeah, when she was in that facility in Detroit.
Yes.
Yeah.
The polio was difficult. She had a lot of health issues in her older years, but again, was not allowing that to determine bad things for her. She just, the stroke did not stop her from doing much. No, but she always did say that was the worst of her health issues were the strokes. But she had multiple cancers as well. So cancer is very prevalent disease in my family. Between my mother and her siblings, she had 5 siblings. They had 9 different cancers. Oh, my word. My word.
Now, then you entered at a time, I just want to tell those watching, many times we say, you know, Sister Maureen Comer, who was known as da-da-da-da-da. Well, when you entered, you kept your names. You didn't change your names at that time. It was a total different formation.
We could have, as novices, taken a religious name, but we didn't. A couple people did, but they're no longer with us.
I didn't realize
that's when it changed.
Okay.
Well, and everything about the congregation changed.
Yeah.
When I entered, it was the old model with religious names, but then, now it's optional and nobody's doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Entered wearing kind of a long black skirt with a black outfit from head to tail. In the middle, it got changed. As a novice, had on the long habit, not the headgear, but everything else about the long habit, middle of the year, changed into short habit. So I entered in an era of great change.
But you kind of went with it.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah,
you did.
Okay.
And one of the blessings of my life in the congregation is I was brought back to work in the offices in Adrian, and at a time, this was the early 70s. If you recall what we were like then, so many dynamic, creative things going on, and getting to work with people on that council was a wonderful gift. One of the things that was formative for me, Peg, at the time, I entered thinking I would be a high school teacher. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a teacher because Adrian, I didn't even know about the healthcare part of the congregation when I entered. And so I wanted to be a teacher. That's what Adrian Dominicans did. And my group was given the privilege of finishing our undergraduate degrees. If you recall, way back when, it just took forever to finish your undergraduate degrees because you did it during summers or whatever you could fit in, because you were sent out to teach right away. We were a group that said, no, you didn't have to go out to teach right away. We're going to let you finish that undergraduate degree. So I went in to see the sister who was in charge of studies to get that all set up. And she said to me, oh, yes, you're the sister studying business administration. And I said, oh, sister, I think you have the wrong file out. I'm not studying business. She said, well, what do you think you're doing? I said, well, I'm going to study social sciences and then for high school. And she said, have a seat. That's when I found out I was studying business administration.
Okay, so that's
And so I was one of very, very few women in the School of Business at Wayne State University. I went back to Wayne State, and I can assure you, I was the only one in the School of Business Administration wearing a white dress with this thing in front of it and with a veil on my head. Nobody did that.
wow.
But, you know, I think when we think about even what we talked about at General Chapter, and one of our focuses is on women, I think that for me is the one that's most attractive to me, is what of the things that we have been focused on with General Chapter. But I think it was my experience of being in that unbelievable male environment where everyone that was studying, which was a very important thing to me to learn, they were all men. And so trying to establish credibility between the habit and being a woman was a challenge.
I can see.
As a matter of fact, in one of the classes I took it was at the very end of the curriculum, and you had to be a graduating senior to even take the class. And when the class started, the professor pointed at me in the class and said, "You're in the wrong class." So, and I checked with my schedule and I said, "I'm not in the wrong class. This is where I'm supposed to be."
Wow.
So that experience was also one of my formative things.
Yeah.
Doing something that women just did not do. They did not study business administration. It just didn't happen.
Or being in charge of healthcare facilities.
Well,
there's the administration. Yeah.
That's right. Certainly not if in the Catholic realm, women religious were administrators of hospitals. But outside of that environment, no. So when I would participate in the Nevada Hospital Association or Washington, there weren't very many women at the table. There still aren't all that many.
All right. Relative to your very many ministerial positions in the healthcare field, your most recent, you can talk about anyone, but is there one in particular that you could share with us that was, I think they all were significant, but that you would?
Yeah, with the questions you gave me ahead of time, you use the word transformative.
Yeah.
And I think I would have to say every experience that I have had ministerially has been transformative, different ways, different times.
Yeah.
From when I worked in the offices to working at our own hospital in Henderson, Nevada, working with the Providence Sisters up in the Northwest, and more recently working with the Dominican Sisters of Peace here in Waterford. Waterford, you mentioned earlier, I'm in Waterford. I live in Waterford, which is a suburb of Detroit. So my third generation Detroiter blood is still pretty thick. Lourdes, in many ways, it's my most recent experience. And it's one that Peg and I were just talking about it, that she actually encouraged me to explore this possibility back 17 years ago. I've been in ministries, I've never had real short-term ministries. They've been 5 or 6 or 9 years in that range. But here I've been 17 years. And this is a ministry where I didn't really want to do it. But Peg asked me to please go. They were looking to fill the position of what they called then the campus administrator. And Lourdes is a continuum of care for older adults. There's about 250. Well, in COVID times, we didn't have that many, but, and it's been here a long time. The sisters have been on these grounds since the 30s. But it was one of those things I thought, well, I was looking at another positions elsewhere in acute care, but I thought, well, I'll go because Peg asked me to. And I have to say, this is the experience where this is where God wanted me to be. It wasn't where I thought I wanted to be, but it was where I could tell this is really what God called me to do.
Wonderful.
So, and that has carried me throughout this time that I've been here, that it was the right thing to do, to be here. It was different than what I had done, because mainly my healthcare experience was in acute care, but I had a mixture also. For example, when I was in Washington State, yes, it was a hospital, but it also had a nursing home. It had case management, which you would probably have loved, Peg, for older adults. It was a huge case management program in the community. I loved it. So I had a little bit of both. So it's been one of those things where the Lourdes, as it is known now, it was started in 1965, really, at the request of Cardinal Dearden. He approached the Oxford Dominican Sisters at the time and said, I'd like to have a nursing home in that part of the archdiocese. If I build it, would you let me use your property? And that's how Lourdes came to be.
Good.
So God's intervention has been pretty strong here forever. One of the things that's really good about when you're dealing with long-term care versus acute care, you get an opportunity to get to know the residents. Oftentimes with acute care, you don't get to know people because they're in and out so fast, but you get to know the residents. And so it really is, they are at their home. This is not, there is a medical component to what you do in a place like Lourdes, but the medical component is the tool. It's not the end goal, it's the tool. And this is their home. So that's what we, something that has nurtured me was to work with the staff, work with the residents, get to know their families, and yes, use the medical, because that's a great thing to do. And certainly during COVID, it overtook us. But at the same time, these are persons that are living out their life. And so this is their home in the best sense of that word. I'm just saying a nursing home, that term has gotten to be not always a good term. It implies poor care. It implies warehousing of people. It's awful. And it doesn't have to be that at all. One of the things Peg and I were talking about, that how do you do that? And so part of it is to work with the staff. Staff are very dedicated, and the staff here, it's unbelievable, the staff that Lourdes has generated over the years. If people come, the staff comes and they don't leave. They stay and they keep providing their services. I've often said that if you've only been here about 10 or 15 years, you're still a newbie. You got to be here at least 20 years before you really are respected as, oh, I guess she really is going to hang around. People here commonly are 30, 40 plus years.
Wow.
And it just shows the dedication of their service. And so we were talking about one of the programs that I started here that actually I learned about when I was in the Northwest is we call, it's called the St. Rose of Lima Award. And we did it around the Feast of St. Rose of Lima. The Oxford Sisters, that was their community name. They were the Dominican Sisters of St. Rose of Lima. And so, and that's another whole story about St. Rose. But that being said, ask the staff, we would ask the staff, what are some things either for safety, quality, or education that we could do that would make Lourdes a better place? And we'll spend up to $2,000. And so they would come up with their ideas. And then we'd recognize their ideas at a board meeting, and then we'd implement what they had recommended. So it's just a way, and we do that once a year around the Feast of St. Rose of Lima is when we would ask people to submit ideas, and it also helped us, I mean, on the administrative side, it helps us come up with some ideas for the budget. If we couldn't do it under a grant program, we'd put it in the budget if we could. So it was an administrative thing too, but that really was not the heart of it at all. So it was always fun to see what are they going to come up with. And some things were not realistic to do or didn't fit under the $2,000 limit. But
they could submit it, and they were invited to participate. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
And the place would not be the place without them. It would be different.
That couldn't be truer.
So you shared that leadership, and you invited their leadership into operation of the whole facility, which is wonderful. I know this is kind of short, but do you have anything else just a last thought that you'd like to leave with us? And probably pretty soon I'll be around for session 2 with, although I still have a lot of our women that I haven't done. Some of them are saying no.
Yes, well, it's a little scary.
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
But anything else you want to just leave us with?
Well, you did say, well, is there something people might not know about me? Yeah. And those who've been with me know, but celebrating is an important part of life. You know, what gives us life? So one thing that I am known for is celebrating the feast of St. Patrick. So, that is another part of, it's part of my Irish heritage, but it really is also part of the humanness that we talked about.
Yes.
And that, St. Patrick is a big party day in our country. More so, it's a holy day in Ireland, but it's a party day. And the reason I really did a big deal about that early in my years when I was at St. Rose, even though the winter of Nevada is different than the winter of Michigan, you still got tired. Mm-hmm. And I could see that in the staff. By March, we hadn't had a day, we had the last day off was New Year's, and we weren't going to have another holiday off until the end of May. And it's not as sunny, and it's, so people got cranky. So I decided to celebrate the Feast of St. Patrick.
Nice.
So I do crazy things. I have an outfit that is from head to toe shamrocks. I get Irish kind of green candy. You can buy it on the line. You can buy anything online. And like here at Lourdes, what I would do is I would have a party. I had to stop that in COVID time, but I would go to every building, every shift with my outfit and give out green beads and candy and what have you, including to the residents. So that's part of the joy part. That's part of the reason I'm saying it. It's a silly part of the joy part, but sometimes silly is good.
And you bring joy.
I'm well known here and elsewhere for my outfit that I wear on St. Patrick's Day.
Very good. Very good.
And running around to all the buildings at 2:00 in the morning.
They are going to miss you there. Because I don't think you said
they will miss that.
Yeah. No, I don't think you've mentioned you've retired from the facility.
That is correct. Last month I finished my ministry. I'm still living on the grounds, and there's a building that the Dominican Sisters of Peace have at the end of the property where I've been living actually for about 10 years, but they are allowing me to continue. And that is also part of the healing because it's nature. I'm looking out as a lake. When I look this way, I'm seeing a lake, and the deer run through the yard almost every day. And it's given what I've had in health issues in the last several years, it has become a very holy place for me.
Wonderful.
A place of healing.
Wonderful. What a nice gift to have that. And I know you appreciate it very much.
It is a wonderful thing they have done for me to allow me to continue here. Because while I had great health care, I haven't had time to really heal. I've had time to cure some of the issues. Not totally cure, but cure to a point. But healing is now a possibility for me. I have more time for that.
Good.
And healing takes time.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for saying yes to the interview, and a million thanks for saying yes to 17 years ago with the job. It's amazing, isn't it, how you call someone to something, because I must have been called to call you or whatever it was. But anyway, what a gift you have been to the residents there, and what a gift you are to our congregation as well. And I'm just thrilled that you're feeling much better, and you can tell your energy is back. So thank you for whatever and wherever the Spirit leads you. I know you'll be open, and if it becomes a challenge, you'll just go back to the 3rd grade mentality, and you will say, I will do it. That's a wonderful story. Wonderful. Yes. So thank you, Sister Maureen Comer.